In this lesson, we'll be drawing an apple. I'll be using a red colored pencil for this, but feel free to use whatever tool you like. We'll start by simplifying the apple into a circle shape. Then go back over the circle and simplify the complex outer contour of the apple into short line segments. I'm trying to capture the essence of the apple's shape rather than make a carbon copy of it, so there's going to be some deviation from the reference. Your simplification will probably look different from mine, and that's perfectly fine. Each artist will have their own interpretation of the reference, and that's what makes art so interesting. Then we'll draw in the elliptical opening at the top of the apple. Of course, this opening has rounded edges, so only the front half of the ellipse will be hard edged and visible. Now let's take a look at the body of the apple. We can see that the form is rounded in the middle and then gradually rolls into the divot at the top. In fact, if we look closely at the texture of the skin, we can see subtle lines curving into the divot. These lines are called cross-contour lines, and they help to communicate to the viewer the changing form of the apple. This cast shadow created by the stem is a very clear cross-contour line because it wraps around this part of the apple and shows its rounded form. Cast shadows can often act as very effective cross-contour lines. So, going back to the drawing, I'll lightly draw in these cross-contour lines to help describe the 3D volume of the apple. Although these lines are very subtle, they really help the viewer to visualize the form of the subject and make things look more three-dimensional. Next, we'll draw in the stem, which is basically a cylindrical shape. And put in the cast shadow. As you can see, this apple is really just like the sphere, except with a few more added details. By the way, if you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to check out the full Drawing Fundamentals course at mydrawingtutorials.com/basics. It's designed to teach a complete beginner all the basic skills they'll need to become successful at drawing. Okay, back to the lesson. Okay, now we can draw in the terminator to separate the light and shadow. The form of the apple is not as smooth as a sphere, so the terminator will also have some angle changes and irregularities. Draw in the cast shadow of the stem. We really want to capture or even exaggerate the curviness of this cast shadow in order to show the rounded form of the apple. And even though it might be easy to miss, there's also a terminator on the stem as well. And there's a patch of shadow on the side where the form of the apple turns into the divot. Now we can shade in the shadow side with a flat tone. For the cast shadow, I'll try something different and allow the pencil strokes to show through a little. Although notice that I'm keeping my pencil strokes all going in the same diagonal direction. This gives the shading a cohesive pattern and injects it with a kind of movement and energy. Next, we'll put in the occlusion shadow at the bottom of the apple. In the reference, the cast shadow is pretty much evenly dark, So I am taking some artistic liberty by darkening this area more. Next, I'll darken the bottom portion of the stem's cast shadow and let it gradually fade out. Now we'll darken the core shadow on the apple. And remember to darken the core shadow on the stem as well. Be sure to sharpen your pencil frequently so you can work on these smaller areas. Next, we'll lighten this outer edge of the apple to create a lost edge. And add in the halftone. There's the main halftone area on the body. And there's also smaller halftone areas here, where the form of the apple begins to turn into the divot. Next, we'll put in the center light and highlight. We're going to use the white of the paper to depict the highlight. So in order to do that, we'll put a light layer of tone over the center light and halftone area. Then we'll use an eraser to lift out the highlight. The highlight still looks very subtle right now, so in order to make it more intense, we'll darken everything else in the drawing to give it more contrast. The reflected light on this apple is not very strong, but if you wanted to make it stronger, you could simply make the core shadow darker than what I have here. Accentuate the core shadow on the stem. And darken the halftone to create a smoother transition between the light and shadow. Darken the occlusion and cast shadow. And I'm going to merge the cast shadow with this portion of the apple to create a lost edge. And be sure to lighten the pressure on your pencil to let the cast shadow gradually fade out as it moves further away. And that's it, we're all done. Go ahead and try this drawing for yourself. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you did, make sure to check out the full Drawing Fundamentals course at mydrawingtutorials.com/basics. You'll get tons of additional lessons and step-by-step exercises and learn things like how to draw anything accurately from observation, how to construct and draw objects from your imagination, how to shade realistically, and a whole lot more. So if you're ready to improve your drawing skills, head over to mydrawingtutorials.com/basics or click the link below.